Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are getting into something really at the cutting edge of human potential.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at the high-stakes world of elite sport, and specifically how athletes can, really optimize their physical readiness routines.
Squeeze every last drop out of their performance.
Exactly. And our mission today is to unpack a fascinating new piece of work. It's all about one simple, but I think really powerful idea.
Using both the mind and the muscle.
Right. To create this cumulative, synergistic warm-up effect that just boosts explosive performance.
And this whole deep dive comes from a great article just published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
Okay.
The title is, let me get it exactly right, "The combination of motor imagery and post-activation performance enhancement is efficient to emphasize the effects of warm-up on sport-specific performance."
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it tells you everything. The authors are Valentin Rumeau, Sidney Grospretre, and Nicolas Babault. It's a 2024 paper in volume 23 of the journal.
Okay, so let's unpack that title. We're focusing on two very different but powerful boosters. One is physical. It's called post-activation performance enhancement, or PPE.
PPE. Yeah.
And the other is purely mental. It's called motor imagery, or MI.
MI.
So the big question here is, what happens when you combine them? When you put them together in one warm-up? Do they, cancel each other out, or do they create something more powerful together?
And that's the whole point of the study. It really challenges how we think about warm-ups.
Right.
I mean, we all know a warm-up is crucial, right? It gets the cardiovascular system going, the neuromuscular system.
Reduces injury risks, all that stuff.
Exactly. But this is moving way beyond just a light jog and some stretches. This is about targeted physiological hacks.
So let's define our two strategies. Let's start with the physical one, PPKE.
Okay.
Post-activation performance enhancement. This is an active warm-up strategy, so it's something you do.
Right. It involves a very high-intensity, short conditioning contraction.
A really strenuous effort just before your event. In this study, I think they use maximal leg press extensions.
They did. The whole goal is to acutely, enhance the neuromuscular system for explosive power-type actions.
You see this all the time. A pitcher doing weighted throws, or a sprinter doing resistance runs. It's a temporary strength boost.
And the key thing to remember is that the mechanism for PAPE is primarily peripheral.
Meaning?
It's focused on the muscle fibers themselves. It's making them more ready to contract, more forcefully. You're basically tightening the springs in the engine physically.
Okay, so that's PKE, all about the muscle. Now, contrast that with motor imagery, MI.
Right. MI is completely different. It's a passive strategy.
So no physical contractions at all?
None. You could be lying there with your eyes closed, just mentally representing the action. You're picturing the punch, the sprint, whatever it is, but without actually doing it.
This is that classic mental training.
It is, but the effects are very real and very acute, and they originate centrally.
In the brain.
In the brain. It can increase coordination, and critically for this study, it acutely increases the excitability of the motor regions of the brain and the corticospinal pathway.
So if PPE is the hardware upgrade for the muscle,
MI is the software update for the brain. It's all about the quality and the speed of the neural signal coming from your central nervous system.
that central versus peripheral distinction is what's so cool here.
It's everything.
PPE gets the muscle ready to fire the output device, and MI gets the command center, the brain, ready to send a more powerful, cleaner signal down the line.
So the hypothesis was, what if you hit both?
Exactly. If you hit the peripheral systems with PPE and the central systems with MI, the theory was you shouldn't just get an additive effect. You should get a true synergistic cumulative boost.
A kind of 1 + 1 = 3 scenario.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They were looking for proof that combining these two levers, one physical and one mental, could give you a much bigger gain than either one on its own.
And to test that, they needed some very specific athletes.
So who did they study, and what did the experiment actually look like?
The subjects were 10 male boxers from the French national team.
So elite athletes.
Really elite. And that's an important detail. They didn't just pick anybody. Research shows that highly trained athletes are often positive responders to PPE.
They get more out of it.
They get more out of it. They were the ideal group to test the full potential of these routines.
And the setup was super rigorous, right? A crossover, randomized controlled trial.
Which means every single boxer did all 4 experimental sessions. They were their own controls.
With a full day of rest in between.
At least 24 hours to recover, yeah.
So each day, they'd start with a standard 10-minute warm-up, and then came the real experiment. They were randomly assigned to one of 4 different conditions.
They were testing the single effects, the combined effects, and the effect of the order.
Okay, can you walk us through those 4 groups?
Sure. So first, you had the controls. You had control PAPE, which was sitting and resting, then doing the maximal leg press. That tests PPE by itself. Then you had control MA. Rest, then 6 minutes of motor imagery, picturing these powerful sprints and force tasks. That tests MI by itself.
Got it. The 2 baselines.
Exactly. Then came the 2 combinations. PAPE MI, where the physical leg press was followed immediately by the mental imagery.
You're on the other way around.
And MI PPE. The mental imagery came first, right before the physical leg press.
That order is so interesting because PPE doesn't last forever, right? That little boost you get, it fades.
It's very transient. The benefit really only lasts about, 8 to 15 minutes before it starts to dissipate?
So did the researchers have a hunch about which order would be better?
Oh, they definitely did. They had 2 main hypotheses. First, the big one was that the combined protocols would just be better than the single ones.
Of course.
But second, because of that short PAPE window, they actually guessed that MI followed by PAPE, the MI PAPE condition, might be the most effective.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
You want that physical PPE boost to be as fresh as possible right before you test performance.
You want that hardware update as close to the firing line as you can get it.
So after the warm-ups, they immediately started the performance tests. And since they were boxers, the tests were pretty specific.
Very specific. They used something called a Digital Boxing Trainer Assistant, or DBTA.
To measure what? Punching force?
Average and maximal punching force, which is power, but also reaction time, which is all about speed.
And they didn't just stop there.
No. They also measured simple hand grip strength. And, really importantly, they tested repeated sprint ability RSA.
That sounds grueling.
It is. It was 6 consecutive 10-second all-out sprints on an assault bike. It measures your sustained power and how you resist fatigue.
And one last thing. They also asked the athletes how they felt, right?
Yep. They used the NASA TLX questionnaire to measure subjective fatigue. Basically, how mentally and physically draining did the whole warm-up feel?
Okay, so that brings us to the results. And this is where things get really interesting, because the combination protocols really delivered.
They absolutely did.
Let's start with that order hypothesis. What happened to their prediction that MIPPE would be the best?
It was a non-result, but a practically huge one. The study found no statistically significant difference between PAPE-MI and MIPP for any measurement.
Wait, really? So you could do the physical leg press 6 minutes before the mental training or right after it, and it didn't matter. The results were the same.
Precisely. Against their own hunch, the order just didn't matter. It was the fact that you did both that made the difference.
That is a massive takeaway for a coach. You don't have to stress about timing that PP window perfectly inside your mental routine.
It simplifies things dramatically.
Okay, so let's get to the main finding, the cumulative effect. When they compared the combined conditions to the single ones.
The difference was undeniable.
So, for example, boxing average force.
Mm-hmm.
The combination protocols, both of them, led to significantly more powerful punches compared to just doing PPE alone, or MI alone. Their basic punching power was just flat out better.
And it wasn't just a quick spike. That sustained power was better too. The repeated sprint ability, that tough bike test, was significantly enhanced when they combined the 2 strategies. So it's not just about one big punch, it's about being able to repeat that high-intensity effort.
Right.
It proved superior across almost everything. If you look at maximal force, the absolute peak power of a punch, both combination protocols were way better than just doing MI. The mental training alone just couldn't compete.
And what about something simple like hand grip strength?
Same story. Combining PPE and MI led to increased hand grip strength compared to both of the control conditions. The athlete just becomes stronger across the board.
We can't forget the speed element either.
No, and that was fascinating. For boxing reaction time, both combination protocols resulted in significantly lower reaction times.
So they were faster.
They were faster than the group that just did the physical PPE warm-up, which suggests that the mental part, the MI, was really critical for speeding up the brain's processing and response.
So you got stronger and faster
Yeah.
at the same time.
At the same time.
So the simple takeaway for an athlete is what? Combining a short, intense physical effort with mental practice gives you a bigger cumulative effect on power, speed, and endurance. It really is a synergy.
It's hugely effective, and when you look at the mechanism, you can see why it's so powerful. Researchers think it's all down to a greater degree of muscle activation and neural adaptation.
Right.
PPP, like we said, juices up the peripheral muscle function. The motor units are just more ready to go.
And at the same time,
MI is increasing the excitability of the motor regions in the brain. So you're basically facilitating that motor unit recruitment from both ends of the chain.
so a stronger, cleaner signal from the brain.
And a muscle that's physically primed to respond faster and harder to that signal. It's the perfect combination.
You get facilitation at the muscle level and at the neural command level. And that leads to better movement and more power.
Exactly.
Okay, but now we get to the finding that, for me, just changes the whole game, especially for coaches who are terrified of burnout before a big competition. Let's talk about fatigue.
Ah, yes.
Because logically, if you stack two intense methods together, you should feel more tired.
Right.
That is the logical assumption. But the NASA TLX questionnaire, which is all about the boxer's perceived effort,
Yeah.
showed no significant difference across all four conditions.
I'm sorry. Say that again. You're telling me that doing the high-intensity leg presses plus 6 minutes of intense mental imagery felt no more tiring to the boxers?
Than just sitting and doing the imagery alone, or just doing the leg presses alone.
That's incredible.
It's profound. The perceived load was negligible. And that is the huge practical takeaway for any practitioner listening.
You can add these different complementary and super effective strategies together in a warm-up.
Without causing any extra subjective mental or physiological fatigue.
So you get a boost in performance, a boost in speed, a boost in endurance, this cumulative effect across the board.
All for free, with no spike in how tired you feel.
It's an efficiency hack for the human body. It really is. It
Yeah.
makes this combined method something you can actually use in real life, in training, before a competition. The time it takes is minimal, the order is flexible, and the results are just better.
Okay, so to summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive, combining a high-intensity physical contraction and mental training gives you cumulative benefits for force, for sprints, for reaction time.
And it doesn't matter what order you do them in.
It doesn't matter. And maybe the biggest point of all, you get all of that maximum performance gain without feeling any more mentally or physically tired.
And, you know, since these amazing benefits seem to come from maximizing that neural activation, the brain-to-muscle signal, it leads to a final sort of provocative thought.
Go on.
Well, could we push it even further? Maybe future experiments could look at adding, I don't know, more cognitive complexity to the motor imagery. Could that lead to even bigger results?
As long as you don't cross that line into mental overload.
As long as you don't finally tip into actual detrimental fatigue. It's an interesting question.
It is. So if this deep dive into performance and neuromuscular function has piqued your curiosity, we really encourage you to read the full research article by Rumeau, Grospretre, and Babault. You can see the complete methodology and all the data for yourself.
Well worth the read.
And as always, if you want more knowledge like this, make sure you follow the channel and turn on your notifications. That way you won't miss our next deep dive into the research